Why are there no calls for impeachment? This is unacceptable. I will not live in an authoritative country, and neither will any of these people. You can do more. I like you, and I will vote for you if you are brave and you do what we need. We need him impeached. We need him removed.
There is no doubt that this president's conduct has already exceeded any prior standard for impeachment by the United States House of Representatives. I agree with you. But as I said at the beginning, I also have no choice but to be candid with you about the situation that we face and the tools that are at our disposal. As strongly as I agree with you, ma'am. And I regret if this is an unwelcome response, but my job is to be honest with you. The only way to achieve what you want to achieve is to have a majority in the United States House of Representatives.
It is the Martha Zoller Show. So that is John Ossoff dealing with the kind of people he has to deal with at town halls in Atlanta. Screaming women saying that, you know, you got it. The only answer is to get rid of Trump. And he's defending that. Okay? And I'm disappointed. But Mike Collins got into this race yesterday. John King got out last week. Buddy Carter's not getting out as of now. But what Mike Collins is doing is he is making sure he shores up everything before Derek Dooley can get in. Derek Dooley is the governor's pick. What I'm hearing from my sources all over is they don't know Derek very well. They don't know how he stands on the issues. That's been my big question to Derek Dooley's team is that, hey, I don't know what to tell people he thinks about things. We need to know what he thinks about things. There's no question about what Mike Collins thinks. And let me tell you something. He is, if you follow social media, and he's got a big social media following. Now, look, I don't think social media is real life, but social media is a place where you can test messages that you can use in a bigger way. Okay? And he is banging since yesterday, he has gone after John Ossoff, not his Republican opponents, in every way you can. And he understands. And he didn't do the Laken Riley bill for political reasons. He did it because it was such a heinous thing that happened in his district. And his first reaction was, of course, I'm going to do this because this was one of my people. And the sad thing is, instead of John Ossoff and Senator Warnock going over to Mike Collins that day and saying, Mike, how can we help you with this? We're all Georgians, and none of us want this to happen to our daughter. That's what should have happened. But instead, what happened is that they finally voted with Mike on this bill. I think they voted against it, or at least they split their vote back when it was voted on under Biden before they got it completely passed. But they finally voted the right way, but had to be convinced because they were worried about how this bill would impact illegal immigrants instead of how this bill would impact other young women who were being murdered and raped around this country. And it's not about white girls versus black girls. I've seen that stuff. And it's ridiculous because you go and look at the list of angel moms. That's what they call the people who have lost their children to crimes committed by illegal immigrants, people that should not have been in this country. And like the man whose name I will not say who murdered Laken Riley, had interactions with law enforcement before they committed the crime that ultimately took the life of someone. So they should have been stopped at multiple places. You know, you can argue, I know the wussy argument of, oh, well, they just crossed the border illegally, so that's just not anything, and that's really just a misdemeanor. Okay, if you want to make that wussy argument, then let's take that argument and set it aside. Go look at that list of angel moms and angel families and look at these perpetrators. These perpetrators also had interactions with law enforcement where they should have been flagged as illegal immigrants and they should have been cooperating, but they were in sanctuary cities. So the sanctuary cities were not cooperating with ICE. They were covering for these people and then ended up finally committing a violent crime that either cost someone a rape, which impacts that person for the rest of their lives, or a murder, which ended their lives. So initially, our senators took the position of protecting illegal immigrants over protecting women and children who were being assaulted, raped, and murdered by illegal immigrants that shouldn't have been here. And I understand that way of thinking. Look, we have plenty of our own criminals here. We saw that yesterday in New York City. We got plenty of people here that are doing the wrong thing. We don't need to be importing people. And if only 1% of the people that came across the border are terrorists, that's 2 million. I'm sorry, 200,000 if it's 20 million. If only 1 to 2% are violent criminals, we're talking about between terrorists and violent criminals, we could have 1 million people in this country that came in the last 4 years that want to do us harm. And people say that want to defend this. I'm angry about this. People say that want to defend this. Well, we got plenty of our own people that are doing these kind of crimes. Yeah, you're right about that. We need to work on that. But why would we add to that number knowingly? So here's what ought to happen. People ought to get out there and decide who they're going to vote for. But I'm impressed with what I've seen in the last 48 hours from Mike Collins. Okay? But what I will say is this. Okay? What I will say is this. Take a look at this problem. Make sure that you have done the research. And take a look at the history on this. You know, in 1924, we drastically reduced our legal immigration so that we could catch up. Our country could catch up and people could assimilate into the culture. Because if you don't want to assimilate into our culture, you shouldn't come here. Yes, I want to I lift up my German heritage. I lift up my English and Scottish heritage. But I am an American. I am assimilated into American culture. And if I didn't want to, I would go somewhere else. I had a woman in London tell me that she and her husband are trying to assimilate into English culture. She's from Bangladesh. Her child was born here, born in the UK. But there are people in her neighborhood that refuse to speak English, that refuse to assimilate into the English culture. Well, why did you come here? There or here, if you didn't want to assimilate. If you wanted to just live the way you lived in the country you were in, why didn't you fix the country you were in? So my issue, and I think what we need to look at very strongly here, is now that we have secured the border, yes, we might want to build more walls and we might want to do some things. I think we ought to dust off the virtual wall that Obama was going to use, that it worked too well, so he shut down the project. This was a wall that had walls in some places, but in some of these very difficult places, it was a technology wall. It was heat-seeking. It was a wall in different ways. It was a digital wall. Let's use that argument. It worked too well. Obama shut it down. So we might need to do something like that related to borders. But I am in favor of the RAISE Act. And in the RAISE Act, we need to fix legal immigration. And what we need to do is we need to take the overall green cards and we need to reduce them, use those, the number may be 300,000, the number may be 400,000. Take that and reduce the backlog of people that have been waiting legally. And then we need to institute a merit system where having a family member is part of the decision-making process, but not the total decision-making process. Things like what your education is, if you can speak English, there were 7 or 8 or 10 things that you got points for. And then it was determined whether you got a visa based on those points. And then if you don't get in 1 year, you know why you didn't get in, and you can go back to your home country and improve yourself so that you can come here. So I think that's what we ought to do. I'm going to try to reach out to Tom Cotton to see if anybody in his office would be willing to resurrect the RAISE Act. But we need something like that to be sure that we have the proper immigration. This country is a great country of immigrants. I do not deny that. But it's not a country of people who just stormed our borders and broke our laws. And that's what we need to work against. So anyway, follow Mike Collins, follow Buddy Carter, look for Derek Dooley to get into the race. We'll see what happens with any of that. But I'm pretty impressed with what Mike Collins has done in the last 48 hours. We'll take a break.